Good morning, class 9. Today we shall continue with the lesson, the Russian Revolution. We have to start from page 39. The heading is What Changed After October. In the first paragraph, children, you will read about the events of the October Revolution. I am reading the paragraph and I will keep telling you that you have to mark the lines in points. Okay? So keep a pencil with you, and as I tell you, you mark the lines in points. It will be easy for you to learn later on. The Bolsheviks were totally opposed to private property. This is the first change, the events of the October Revolution. The Bolsheviks were totally opposed to private property. Write point number 1. Most industry and banks were nationalized in November 1917. This is second point. This meant that the government took over ownership and management. This line is not any point. Okay, so just leave it. Third point. Land was declared social property and peasants were allowed to seize the land of the nobility. Fourth, in cities, Bolsheviks enforced the partition of large houses according to family requirements. They banned the use of old titles of aristocracy. This is all fourth point. Fifth point. To assert the change, new uniforms were designed for the army and officials. Following a clothing competition organized in 1918. This is not going to be included in your fifth point. The fifth point ends with the word officials. When the Soviet hat was chosen. The Bolshevik Party was renamed the Russian Communist Party. This is the sixth point. The Bolshevik Party was renamed the Russian Communist Party. Underline this and learn this. In November 1917, the Bolsheviks conducted the elections to the Constituent Assembly, but they failed to gain majority support. This is not going to come under any point. Your points are over. There are 6 points. In January 1918, the assembly rejected Bolshevik measures and Lenin dismissed the assembly. He thought the All-Russian Congress of Soviets was more democratic than an assembly elected in uncertain conditions. In March 1918, despite opposition by political allies, the Bolsheviks made peace with Germany at Brest-Litovsk. In the years that followed, the Bolsheviks became the only party to participate in the elections to the All-Russian Congress of Soviets, which became the parliament of the country. Russia became a one-party state. Underline this. All this you should remember, whatever I am asking you to mark or underline. Trade unions were kept under party control. The secret police called the Cheka, underline, very very important for 1 mark question. The secret police was known as Cheka. The secret police called the Cheka first and later OGPU and NKVD punished those who criticized the Bolsheviks. Many young writers and artists rallied to the party because it stood for socialism and for change. After October 1917, this led to experiments in the arts and architecture. But many became disillusioned because of the censorship the party encouraged. The Civil War. When the Bolsheviks ordered land redistribution, the Russian army began to break up. Pay attention, all these lines which I am reading, all these paragraphs are very important. I will tell you what you have to mark, what you should learn. When the Bolsheviks ordered land redistribution, the Russian army began to break up. Soldiers, mostly peasants, wished to go home for the redistribution and deserted. Non-Bolshevik socialists, liberals and supporters of autocracy condemned the Bolshevik uprising. Their leaders moved to South Russia and organized troops to find the Bolsheviks. During 1918 and 1919, the Greens, that is the Socialist Revolutionaries, and Whites, that were the pro-Tsarists, controlled most of the Russian Empire. They were backed by French, American, British and Japanese troops. All these troops and the Bolsheviks fought a civil war. Looting, banditry and famine became common. Supporters of private property among whites took harsh steps with peasants who had seized land. Such actions led to the loss of popular support for the non-Bolsheviks. By January 1920, the Bolsheviks controlled most of the former Russian Empire. All these things you don't have to learn, children. They succeeded due to cooperation with non-Russian nationalities and Muslim jihadists. Underline Muslim jihadists. Cooperation did not work where Russian colonists themselves turned Bolshevik. In Khiva in Central Asia, Bolshevik colonists brutally massacred local nationalists in the name of defending socialism. In this situation, many were confused about what the Bolshevik government represented. Partly to remedy this, most non-Russian nationalities were given political autonomy, that means political freedom, in the Soviet Union, the state the Bolsheviks created from the Russian Empire in December 1922. But since this was combined with unpopular policies that the Bolsheviks forced the local government to follow, like the harsh discouragement of nomadism, attempts to win over different nationalities were only partly successful. Here also, children, there is nothing for you to learn as such. Making a socialist society. During the Civil War, the Bolsheviks kept industries and banks nationalized. Here again, you have to mark in points and you have to learn all this. What were the changes which came in the socialist society? First point, during the Civil War, the Bolsheviks kept industries and banks nationalized. Second point, they permitted peasants to cultivate the land that had been socialized. Third point, Bolsheviks used confiscated land. Confiscated land means zabt kiya hua, the land which was brought under their control. Bolsheviks used confiscated land to demonstrate what collective work could be. Fourth point, a process of centralized planning was introduced. Officials assessed how the economy could work and set targets for a 5-year period. This is not under any point. On this basis, they made the 5-year plans. Now, fifth point will start. The government fixed all prices to promote industrial growth during the first 2 plans. Centralized planning led to economic growth. This is going to be your continuation of the fifth point. Centralized planning led to economic growth. Industrial production increased. This also will be under fifth point. New factory cities came into being. All this is point number 5. Next paragraph will be the sixth point, first line. Rapid reconstruction led to poor working conditions. This is the sixth point. In the city of Magnitogorsk, the construction of a steel plant was achieved in 3 years. This is not going to be any point. Workers lived hard lives and the result was 550 stoppages of work in the first year alone. In living quarters in the winter time at 40 degrees below, people had to climb down the 4th floor and dash across the street in order to go to the toilet. So this shows the harsh working conditions. Next paragraph, first line is your 7th point. An extended schooling system developed and arrangements were made for factory workers and peasants to enter universities. 8 point. Creches were established in factories for the children of women workers. Point number 9. Cheap public health care was provided. Model living quarters were set up for workers. This is also going to be your same point number 9. Then 10th point. The effect of all this was uneven, though since government resources were limited. Now come to page number 44. Page number 44, children, is very, very important. I will tell you what you have to mark and what you have to learn. Stalinism and collectivization. The period of the early planned economy was linked to the disasters of collectivization of agriculture. By 1927 and 28, the towns in Soviet Russia were facing an acute problem of grain supplies. Pay attention, it is very important. The government fixed prices at which grain must be sold. This is the first point. What did the government do to meet the shortage of grain supplies, the problem of grain supplies? Point number 1 is the government fixed prices at which grain must be sold, but the peasants refused to sell their grain to government buyers at these prices. Stalin, who headed the party after the death of Lenin, introduced firm emergency measures. He believed that rich peasants and traders in the countryside were holding stocks in the hope of higher prices. That means Stalin was of the opinion that the rich merchants and traders were keeping large stocks of food grains or grains with them so that they could earn higher prices, and that is why there was shortage of food grains. Speculation had to be stopped and supplies confiscated. The supplies of food grains were confiscated from those, were taken away forcibly from those who were having large stocks of food grains. In 1928, party members toured the grain producing areas. Party members of Stalin. They toured the grain producing areas, supervising enforced grain collection and raiding kulaks, the name for well-to-do peasants. Underline this. Again, this is a question for multiple choice or for one word answer. The kulaks were, you can be asked in fill in the blank also, in multiple choice also, or in one word answers also. It is an important thing. Kulaks were the name for well-to-do peasants. Well-to-do peasants, the rich peasants, were called kulaks. So now your second point is, first point you have marked in first paragraph. Second point is going to start now. As shortages continued, the decision was taken to collectivize farms. This was the second step which was decided to be undertaken. As shortage of food grains continued, the decision was taken to collectivize farms. Now let us see what was this collectivization. Second point finishes here. It was argued that grain shortages were partly due to small size of holdings. Holdings means it was believed, it was argued, it was thought about that there was shortage of grains because the farmers, the peasants had small pieces of land to cultivate. Their land holdings were small. The piece of land which was under them for cultivation was a small piece of land. After 1917, land had to be given over to peasants. These small sized peasant farms could not be modernized. To develop modern farms and run them along industrial lines with machinery, it was necessary to eliminate kulaks, take away land from peasants, and establish state-controlled large farms. So all these lines are very important, children, because it tells us what was the problem they were thinking why there was shortage of food grains. It was thought that shortage of food grains was firstly because the land holdings were small. Secondly, these small farms, these small pieces of land could not be modernized. Then another difficulty was to not a difficulty, and it was thought about that the remedy to this problem was that the land should be taken away from kulaks or well-to-do peasants, and the land should also be taken away from ordinary peasants, the poor peasants. And then what should be done? State control should be established over large farms. I am repeating, it was thought about that the shortage of food grains was due to one reason, that is the land holdings were small. The second reason was that small sized farms could not be modernized. So in order to remove this problem, in order to finish this problem, it was thought that the kulaks should be eliminated. That means the well-to-do, the rich peasants should be, the land should be taken away from the rich peasants and from ordinary peasants as well, and the land should be controlled, the farm should be controlled by the state. What followed was Stalin's collectivization program. Now, how could all this be done? This could be done by following a program, a system which was started by Stalin, and that was called as collectivization. From 1929, the party forced all peasants to cultivate in collective farms. This is the third point. From 1929, all this, the points which you are marking, you will have to learn them. The party forced, the party of Stalin forced all peasants to cultivate in collective farms. Now, what were the collective farms known as? Kolkhoz. You can see it is written in brackets. This again is a 1 mark question. Very important. Learn it. Underline and learn later on. Collective farms were called kolkhoz. The next line is your fourth point. The bulk of land and implements were transferred to the ownership of collective farms. The bulk of land, that means many large pieces of land along with the implements which were used for cultivation, they were transferred to the ownership of collective farms. All those who became owners of collective farms, they were given those pieces of land and the implements used for cultivation. Next point, fifth point. Peasants worked on the land and the kolkhoz profit was shared. Peasants worked on the land, they were doing all the labor, but the profit which was earned on these collective farms, those were shared. Enraged peasants, the angry peasants, resisted the authorities and destroyed their livestock. The peasants did not like that the hard work which they are doing, the profit of that hard work should be shared among the people who were owning the land, who were owning these collective farms. That is why they resisted. They resisted to the authorities, they showed their anger to the authorities, and they destroyed the livestock. That means they destroyed those cattle which were being used in cultivation. Between 1929 and 31, the number of cattle fell by 1/3. Those who resisted collectivization were severely punished. Now the authorities did not like it at all that the ordinary peasants were showing their resentment, they were showing their aggression, they were angry. So all those peasants who resisted this collectivization plan started by Stalin, they were severely punished. They were deported and exiled. Deported means they were forcibly removed from one's own country. They had to leave their country forcibly and they were exiled. they had to live somewhere else in some other country as prisoners. As they resisted collectivization, peasants argued that they were not rich and they were not against socialism. They merely did not want to work in collective farms for a variety of reasons. Stalin's government allowed some independent cultivation but treated such cultivators unsympathetically. In spite of collectivization, production did not increase immediately. So although this collectivization policy was being implemented by Stalin and his authorities, production of food grains did not increase immediately. In fact, the bad harvest of 1930 to 33 led to one of the most devastating famines in Soviet history when over 4 million died. Next page. Many within the party criticized the confusion in industrial production under the planned economy and the consequences of collectivization. That means many people who were the members of Stalin's party, even they did not like the practice of collectivization and the confusion which they were seeing in industrial production, and they wanted to oppose it. Stalin and his sympathizers charged these critics with conspiracy against socialism. So all those people in the party who were opposing the policy of collectivization, they were being charged as conspirators. It was believed by Stalin that they were conspirators. Again, they were planning a conspiracy against socialism. Accusations were made throughout the country, and by 1939 over 2 million were in prisons or labor camps. So all those party members who opposed collectivization, they were charged of being conspirators and they were put in either prison or labor camps. Most were innocent of the crimes. That means they had not done any crime, but no one spoke for them. They were put in prison and there was nobody to raise their voice and make them free. A large number were forced to make false confessions under torture and were executed. A large number of these people who were imprisoned, they had to make false confessions. That means they had to falsely admit a fault which actually they had never committed. Under torture, they were tortured, they were ill-treated, and they were forced to confess those crimes which they had never committed, and they were executed, killed. Several among them were talented professionals. Next page. The global influence of the Russian Revolution and the USSR. Existing socialist parties in Europe did not wholly approve of the way the Bolsheviks took power and kept it. However, the possibility of a worker state fired people's imagination across the world. In many countries, communist parties were formed. This is the first global influence. First, point number 1, you should mark. In many countries, communist parties were formed, like the Communist Party of Great Britain. Second point, the Bolsheviks encouraged colonial peoples to follow their experiment. Third, many non-Russians from outside the USSR participated in the Conference of the Peoples of the East, and the Bolshevik founded Comintern, an international union of pro-Bolshevik socialist parties. Again, children, this line you have to learn. Comintern means it was an international union of pro-Bolshevik socialist party. Some received education in USSR's communist universities of the workers of the East. This line is not going to come under any point. Point number 4. By the time of the outbreak of the Second World War, the USSR had given socialism a global face and a world stature. Yet, by the 1950s, it was acknowledged within the country that the style of government in the USSR was not in keeping with the ideals of the Russian Revolution. Fifth point, in the world, socialist movement too was recognized. Till recognized is your fifth point. That all was not well in the Soviet Union. Point number 6. A backward country had become a great power. Its industries and agriculture had developed and the poor were being fed. This all is going to come under sixth point. But till fair children, close the bracket. But it had denied the essential freedoms to its citizens and carried out its developmental projects through repressive policies. By the end of the 20th century, now point number 7 begins. The international reputation of the USSR as a socialist country had declined. Though it was recognized that socialist ideals still enjoyed respect among its people. Till people, your seventh point will continue. Last line is your eighth point. But in each country, the ideas of socialism were rethought in a variety of different ways. So this is how the global influence of the Russian Revolution was seen. So here your chapter comes to an end. The only thing you have to remember is today whatever things I have made you mark, or I have made you mark or underline, or I have told you to mark in point, and all things you have to learn. All those important lines which I have told you are important for 1 mark question, learn it by heart. Then when I will send the PDF to you, you will see whichever questions are sent in the PDF, you will note down those question and answers as you have been doing in your fair copies. And here this chapter comes to an end. Now in our next class, we will do some other lesson. I will give you prior information so that you are ready with that chapter open. Have a nice day. Thank you.